Okay, I'd like to welcome you folks kind of back to a combination of Now You Know and Keeping Pace. And it's been a while, I think, since we've seen you folks. Unfortunately, we were on another COVID reprieve here for about 3 months or so, and now finally, hopefully, things are getting better and we don't have to go on hiatus again. But unfortunately, during the time that we've been away, we've had a few negative things happen, and we've lost some key people in the community, to be honest with you. We lost our founder, our creator, Katie Ouilette. Katie passed away on January 17th of this year. And this show is to remember her, as well as Darla Picket, a key person on our show, the Keeping Pace show, over the years. And Darla passed away, if I remember correctly, December 14th of last year. And I want to tell you something. I just happened to, when I was reading through stuff, and it was kind of interesting, that on January 17th, that's when your mom's funeral was. Yes. January 17th is the day that Katie died. So is there some sort of symmetry to all of that? I don't know, but maybe there is. So,
okay.
but anyways, we're fortunate to have Tricia Austin, who is the daughter of Darla Picket, on my far left, and to my immediate right is Lynn Rooney, who is Katie Ouillette's daughter. And I don't know who's going to know their respective moms any better than they do. And we're also fortunate to bring back some of our Keeping Pace staff members, and Donna Finley over to my left, and Alan Foxwell to my immediate left.
And Alan is an original.
Yeah. Actually, Alan was an original member of Keeping Pace. As a matter of fact, Alan, if you want to hold up that photo of the original folks on the Keeping Pace show, so you can see it.
And if you'd like me to name them, I will.
Can you remember?
Yes.
Okay.
I know this guy on the end. He's a younger version of me. And this young lady next to me is Alice Corson.
Yes.
And then her parody, Betty Whitty and Maitland Richardson. And at the back is Katie and Gary Allen.
Very good.
The photographer.
Very good.
The cameraman, I should say. And he pulls some wicked pranks on us. We'll go into that later.
And every one of them were the greatest storytellers. They were so good.
Yeah, they were wonderful
We
stories.
were just a pack of lies.
And her parody headed things, and he was really a very, very interesting man.
Oh, absolutely.
With,
very knowledgeable.
Oh,
great stories.
He was amazing.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many people realize it, that he was not the greatest talker until later on in life. He took 5 Dale Carnegie courses before he could speak to the people.
No kidding.
I wouldn't have known that.
And did you know something else about him? He was trained as a child to be a classical piano player.
No kidding.
Until he got drafted, until he went in the military at the age of 18. His mother, he was trained to be a classical piano player, but he wouldn't play. He couldn't play in front of people. He had this introversion, and another thing about him, in fact, when he wrote to Derigo Stitching in his office, I went up there a couple of times to visit him, he had a manual typewriter. I don't know if any of you knew this, and he could type faster than the Guinness World Book of Records typist with the holes that he didn't want anyone to know.
Really?
He could type, it still might be in the office up there, but he gave me a demonstration of his typing speed. You could not believe, all it was clap, clack, clack. He was like a magician. And also, he could speak Russian fluently, French fluently. He was a brilliant man.
Very bright man.
But he had never been to Dunkin' Donuts until his mother died.
I don't think he ever went anywhere until his mother died,
No,
except a few of the trips.
one of the gentlemen from Delago Stitching picked him up one day and took him up to Dunkin'. He said, "Where are we going?" He said, "We're going to go Dunkin' Donuts." What? I've never been there before. And he'd never had a Dunkin' Donuts coffee. And from that day on, he would make sure he got one a day.
Really?
But Herb was so funny, and he was so dry, so dry. And sometimes it was all, well, it just brings back so many memories.
Oh,
God.
There's a lot when you're looking at those people. Yeah.
And he
And
would introduce the show, and if we had a guest, he would introduce the guest, and then usually we would take over. And the five of us, the four of us, and guests would say, "Well, what did we talk about?" I said, "Oh, we talk about whatever you want to talk about. That's why you're here, because of your job or whatever." And all of a sudden, the hour's gone by.
Yeah, and I went very
amazing,
quickly.
yeah. But Katie
Was the original.
but Gary, he made this one blooper show of us, and one of them was where
That's my favorite.
was where I think it was Herb went to sit in his chair and the chair collapsed. Or it might have been Betty. It might have been Betty with him whose chair collapsed. And we just all, no one got hurt, so the laughter started. And it took us about 5 starts to try and get into the show, because Herb would keep breaking down.
Yeah, he'd say it and then he'd laugh. And that was a good show.
But you had some amazing individuals that were part of that show, and
Katie,
the back and forth between you people was
But Katie
amazing.
was notorious for last-minute telephone calls, making a request. One of them, the one that stands out in my mind pertaining to me, I want to say this before I forget anything of it, was she called me up as I was leaving my house. She says, "Alan," she says, "bring a saxophone." I said, What? So we need some entertainment. Just bring a saxophone. I said, "Okay." I grabbed my saxophone, headed out, got into the studio at Madison, walked in, and there in front of this desk on the floor was this 6 or 7 accordions. I said, "Oh, what polkas do I know?" You know? This young man was talking to Katie,
Yeah.
right? And I think he was from
New Hampshire.
Yes, the accordion player. Was he from New Hampshire?
Yeah.
I was going to say Kittery. Close enough.
He was he actually bought a house in Kittery now, but he was living in New Hampshire.
So
at the
you
time.
knew it.
Yes.
Now, did somehow they have a camp at Lakewood?
No.
No, because he had just finished a world tour when I met him.
Yeah. He went
And-
around to the nursing homes playing his accordion, and that's how she met him.
He also played at the White House
Mhm.
Wow.
2 days before he was on Keeping Pace.
Oh my
He had
goodness.
finished a world tour, and I'm saying, "Geez, what do I do now?" You know, this guy was he was so good. So he said, "So we're going to play, right?" So I said, "I guess so." He said, "Well," I said, "What would you like to play?" He said, "Well, anything you want." He said to me, "Let's not play polka." He told me that. He said, "Let's not play polka," because in my demonstration I will play a polka, you know. So I said, "Fine." So we played a bunch of tunes. Bill Bailey was one of them. 5'2", Eyes of Blue, and we done Bill Bailey and Bye Bye Blackbird, and he was unbelievable. I mean, he could have blown anyone off the stage.
And you had no idea he was going to be there that day.
No idea. But
And
that's Katie.
and it wasn't that typical Katie.
That's
Things
typical.
would just come out the last second, and she said, "It'll work out. You'll be fine."
Just
And the
It'll
whole
work out."
idea of doing Keeping Pace was Katie's idea. I mean, she was the originator.
yeah, but you think she'd
And-
give us a little bit of notice? No.
And I mean, Katie was the originator of so many things, and she was involved
in
as you
everything.
know, as her daughter.
Oh, that's-
She was on the go constantly and involved in her community and just involved in everything that was going, and did it almost until she couldn't
Yeah.
physically do it anymore.
Exactly.
But I remember when the candle that was up on the avenue. Do you remember those days?
I
The
do.
village candle that was on the avenue,
I
and
do.
it burnt down. Right? Every
Tricia probably doesn't.
And we played there all the
Candle?
time.
Okay,
And
On Madison
Katie,
Avenue.
down where it's a bat place now?
Yeah.
it
Well,
was-
no,
it's by the
this is
entrance
before.
of the Walmart. It was up. There's a farm up there.
Up by the
and
fairgrounds.
they converted the barn into a restaurant and a dance floor.
You,
I don't think so.
you,
I remember
you two are
Florence-
going back
No, wait,
farther
no,
than
no.
these
Florence
guys
talking
are.
about it though once
But,
we went
um,
to something at
yeah,
house. I
yeah.
remember talking
Yeah.
But,
I was probably 12 or 13.
Yeah.
I do remember
Yeah.
it because we'd come up in the summertime.
I worked there washing dishes.
But Katie and Louie would come up for supper on a Saturday night, and of course you knew she wanted to sing. What did she want to sing? Climb every mountain.
Climb every
Oh, I
mountain.
believe.
Every mountain.
Oh, I believe. We had to play, and she could sing. Oh my word!
Matter of fact, that was written into her obituary.
Obituary.
It was,
And
yeah.
she would close the night at Lakewood out with that
Every
song.
night at
Oh,
Lakewood,
absolutely.
she would
That
sing.
was kind of her theme song.
That
Every
was the
time
last
she
call
come, we
song.
knew we had to play that for us, and she would come up and sing, and her voice was just
She sang at Peter's funeral for me.
Did she?
Did she?
She sang at a lot of weddings.
Oh my goodness!
In her
Yes.
day. I mean,
Oh,
I
I'm
was
sure.
surprised on how many people contacted me, and well, one of the weddings that she sang at was George and Elaine Canal.
Yes, I saw that. Yeah.
But I remember as a little kid going with her, and you know, she sang when we came up in the summertime because we didn't live here at the time. We were living in New Jersey, but
Yeah.
she still would sing a lot of weddings here in Maine during the
Yeah.
summer.
Well, apparently she was such an accomplished singer, soprano singer, that the New York Opera wanted her to join them. And
She
what was
got the
she,
letter.
3 days before her, see, I read this whole thing. 3 days before she was going to get married to your dad, Joe, she had to turn him down.
She turned him down.
Yeah, but New York Opera.
But so
And
there's a lot of
unfortunately, when
talent.
she got the Lyme's disease,
Yeah.
it took her voice.
Took her voice.
That was
Yeah.
one of the side effects.
Yes.
I mean, she still could sing, but she went
Well,
from a soprano
down
to
to
like a bass. It was
Yeah.
it was very
So
odd.
we had to change our.
But
keys
that
to
was
be
one of the
played.
Yeah.
side effects
But,
from the Lyme disease was she no longer could reach the high notes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
But she had an amazing, and she used to sing, I think it was in the Federated Church too. I remember her doing that back then. She sang.
she sang
All over the
everywhere we went. She would wake us up by singing. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Elise
Yeah.
Corson was quite a performer too.
Was she?
Oh, yeah. Elise- she
Well, that was
she
how
was
I,
a-
that
she
was
a
how
top
I
hat, right?
started as the spare, because she used to play for the Eastern Star once a month.
Piano.
Yeah,
Yes.
so that's how I got
And
involved.
she
I
was-
sat in for her on those
Have I
nights.
got the name wrong? Was she a top hatter, a tap dancer? So they
Yes,
the group of
yes,
elderly-
I believe she was,
Yeah,
yeah.
She-
and
Yeah.
she could play piano. Just
And
she played a few. I played a few gigs with her. So.
she was quite a character on that show too.
Her
And she was pretty opinionated and feisty, and occasionally a few expletives would come out. I don't know if we ever bleeped those on that show,
some of
but I.
Because she grew up and her
There's a
father
blooper
was,
show that they weren't bleeped.
her father was a car dealer, I believe, in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
And she came from a very comfortable, pampered life.
Yeah.
And she told the most wonderful stories
And her-
about coming up here, living in a farmhouse
With Phil-
with an
Phil
outhouse,
Coulson,
with
yeah.
a pump.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just so
with
funny.
a muddy road.
Yes, yeah,
Which had to buy a pair of welly boots because she
Yeah.
came here with high heels in the spring, and it was
yeah.
oh, some of the stories.
Oh.
But she and her voice, to follow her speaking was an effort for me
Yeah, wow.
because she spoke so eloquently.
Such a good
Her
storyteller.
son, Phil Coulson Jr.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From,
Yeah.
I used to, when he come, he was a policeman in Florida. He'd come up and visit once a year and we'd talk. I said, boy, your mother is so hard to follow, to follow her vocally, you know.
And Darla followed Betty Withey in many ways.
Yeah.
because she was the reporter.
I was
and-
going to say, we got to bring
and-
Darla
and well,
into this here.
Oh,
My question to you for Darla was, do you have any idea how old you were when she started working as a reporter?
Very young.
I was young.
How many years she
We moved
did
to town
that?
when I was 2 and my sister was 4, and not
Yeah.
long after that, she came down and got a job.
Yeah.
Because she
Yeah.
certainly was a lady involved in the community. She was here, there, and everywhere.
Yeah.
I want to say
Everything.
around 1970, because I got a letter from, does anyone remember when Will Laverdia lived up on the hill?
Yeah.
And he was a school teacher, where
Yes.
my mother was, and she sent the whole day my mother came down and went up there to see them, because she had a job interview and she was really nervous about it, because she was a housewife, and
Yeah.
so she was really nervous about it, and they said that they knew she'd do well, and she got the job that day, and that was that.
And she was not only many years with the Morning Sentinel, but she was
26.
also with
The Reporter.
Bangor.
Somerset Reporter, Bangor
yeah,
Daily
News.
Yeah.
She was with
Yeah.
all of those newspapers, involved in all sorts of stuff.
And she
I
just
mean,
had that natural ability, because she and I have talked about it many times, how with her high school education, if that happened now, they wouldn't even let her through the door because she didn't have any credentials. But she certainly had the intelligence and
Absolutely.
the natural ability, and she was known everywhere.
Well, a very smart
And,
lady.
very
I
smart.
remember
She was
seeing
very
she was
well.
valedictorian of
She
her
was,
yeah.
high school
Yeah.
class
She was set to
in
go to college, and
North
she found out
Anson.
she was having my sister, so.
Yeah.
She
One
got
of her
married.
practicalities
Yeah.
of being smart, I remember when she bought the yellow vehicle.
Oh,
Yes,
yeah.
I just saw that the other day, it brings back a lot of
We were
Yeah.
doing a keeping pace show. I said, "Who buys a lemon?" You know,
With red stripes.
yeah. She said, well,
Everybody knew
what do you think?
that was her.
So she said to me, she
Yeah.
said, well, Alan, she says, what colour is your vehicle? So I said, it was blue at the time. She said, you ever had any trouble finding your vehicle in the parking lot at the shop and say? I said, yes, I don't. It stands out.
You know, you can use a clicker and find it.
I've done that.
Yeah, she loved that truck.
She did. She hated to part with it.
Yeah,
Well,
but
when we
I,
started looking for a new car, it was like, and she could pick the strangest colors, because the new one was like this funny colored orange. She goes, what do you think of it? I said, Mom, I don't know. It's something about the car colors you pick. I said,
but she must have wanted people to know it was her,
Yeah.
right? It was.
Yeah.
She just enjoyed the colors. I don't know
Oh,
why.
she
It's like
did?
a,
Yeah,
yeah, she
yeah.
did.
Well, her whole kitchen was
Yeah.
red. I mean, she loved colors.
Yeah, red toaster, red microwave.
Yeah.
She was
yeah.
also playing piano, wasn't she?
Yes,
Yeah,
she
she
has
was.
one. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Oh, she did that.
Yeah,
I
she
didn't
did
know.
piano.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She used to say she wasn't very good, but she was.
Was she? Yeah.
Yeah, she was.
I'm sure
Yeah.
she used to get
Very
upset
hard
because
on
she
herself.
didn't think her left hand was coordinated enough. I said, honey, you're playing this for your enjoyment,
Yes.
not
Yeah,
for
yeah.
anybody else, you know.
But she was a good reporter, and
Oh, yeah.
she got her stories straight.
She did.
And she was one of those tough but fair type people, and apparently she did have a nose for the news. She could
Yeah.
find
Yeah.
the stories and
She did. The
Just
one
was
thing
a-
she really prided herself on, and
Well,
she
she was filling-
always did. She confidentiality on that.
Yes.
and
To
she
compare
just-
her to Betty
yeah.
Williams filling big shoes.
Yeah.
yeah.
Betty
Yeah.
Williams was
Oh,
super,
absolutely.
But yeah, the Darla was so.
And
she
even like
was
the
always
music,
ready.
it's
Darla-
funny you say
Darla
that
was
with your
always
mom,
ready.
because she loved to sing these little songs. She had a ton of them, and she was going to actually get together with John and record them, and I wish she would have, because
And she loved to write poetry.
she did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she did that.
Yeah.
Oh, she did. So you're adding some things in I didn't know. So
Oh, yeah.
keep it up here. This is good.
Yeah.
And read, I have a stack of books, and I'm still trying to find who they belong to, because about every card that I got was, your mom borrowed such and such. So
Oh,
I've got to
really?
go back to the cards,
Oh.
yes, because there's a bunch stacked by the door, so I think that's.
Yeah, I went to a few books.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
But no.
But you know,
And Maitland, of course, he was the go-to person if you wanted information. If you wanted information about anything that was going to come up, he would research it for us. And have it
Well, and
ready.
he always started the program reading something that was from the
Yes.
current news
Yes.
or
Yeah.
an interesting tidbit of another country, or just, he was amazing.
Yeah.
yeah.
I used to play golf with him, and he was so strong, so powerful, you know. But he and always remember his favourite tune was Stardust.
Stardust.
And whenever he showed up anywhere with his wife, we would play Stardust for him. He would immediately get on the floor. And Betty and her husband, their favorite tune, right from high school days, was In the Mood.
Uh-huh.
And whenever they came through the door anyway, we would stop and play In the Mood, and they would immedially be on the floor.
They also like Let Me Call You Sweetheart.
Yes, that was a sort of, to get them up and going, it was in, there we would play that for them. Yeah.
It's interesting, the things we know about people.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, well, I figure this is a pretty good group to get together to recall these folks, you know, because you've known them intimately
Yeah.
for so many years. And
Oh my God, I miss Darla so much. I can't tell you. Every day I will think, oh, then, as you know, she's not there to call.
That's right.
And
That's
she
right.
and I watching the hearings for the new Supreme Court, Jackson, would have been texting all day long.
Back and forth.
Oh yeah, because we did that with the other two, and because we texted every night when we watched Jeopardy, and I just miss her terribly.
Yeah.
It's a
She
great
used to
show,
send me some of
Jeopardy.
those texts and be like, I think you need to talk to Donna.
Yeah.
Yeah. You were
She
very
did,
close
she loved
friends.
Jeopardy. Yeah, it was one of her favorite shows.
Yeah.
It was when-
We did a wonderful trip to Prince Edward Island, she and my mother and I, and we were gone, I don't know, 4 or 5 days. Had a real good time. That was fun. And because she was my roommate when we went to Italy.
That's right.
So,
Yes, that's right. I remember that.
yeah, with one of
Yeah,
the group
yeah,
tours that
yeah.
do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You were sitting in a restaurant, musicians were playing.
Oh, yes, St.
Yes.
Mark's Square in Venice.
Yes, that's right.
Yes,
Yes, you told me about
absolutely,
that. That was
yeah.
incredible. It was so special, you know.
It went, well, you know, and
So-
I think we
yeah,
were the only ones that
musicians.
did it, but it was fancy and the music was
Okay.
playing. I said, Darla, I want to go there. She said, I do too. So we had our breakfast there.
Nice.
Any other memories that stick out in your mind? And if you can't think of anything, that's okay.
So many.
She was it's strange you say polka because she was before she got COPD and asthma, she was an amazing polka dancer. Her and Tom.
Was she?
Just-
Oh, that I didn't know.
Every year at the Christmas parties, Tom used to have one above the candlelight. Every single year they would do the polka.
Oh, is that
Every year.
right?
It was just simply amazing. Yeah.
And she loved to
Yeah,
dance.
she loved to dance.
Yeah.
That's one of the things she missed the most
Yeah.
when she
Yeah.
couldn't do it anymore.
She and Mary Vanderhoff, we went to, Darla and I went to the, one of the galas they had. And Mary was at our table and Brad Adams, and
And,
she and Mary were both lamenting because they couldn't dance much anymore. And,
Yeah. Yeah.
and Darla loved to laugh. She had such a
Yeah.
happy
Very
laugh.
infectious, yeah.
She
she
was a
was a
fun,
great soul.
fun gal.
yes, she was. Yeah.
Well, your mom would come in here and it was kind of amazing. She would be running the show before you knew what was happening. You could hear across all. You knew what everybody was doing, whatever. It's like-
Well, I think both Darla and Katie had those tendencies,
Yeah.
right? They
Okay.
did run the show when they were around.
Yeah.
There's no question about it, and they really did run our shows.
Yeah.
And
My
she
mother,
loved it.
she loved doing it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
She
yeah.
spoke so
Yeah, she
many
liked being
When
languages.
she had to give it up, it was one of the things that she really missed, and she
Yeah.
said it a lot.
Yeah.
But
But she hosted Keeping Pace. How many years? It was?
20.
Well, Darla?
No, oh, Donna, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I'm still
You
I'm
know,
still back
Chris,
in the,
I don't
yeah.
know.
Quite a number of years
Yeah.
she hosted
Quite a
Keeping
few.
Pace.
Yes.
And just like the good reporter she was always asking very insightful questions to
Yes.
guests
Yeah.
on the show. Very thoughtful. You knew she'd been thinking questions up.
And
in
if she knew
advance.
who the host was going, the guest was going to be, she'd do a little bit of research.
Oh, you always had
prior.
a book in front of a paper in front of her with all the notes.
Oh, that's right. She'd always come with some notes
Notes,
as to
yeah.
things.
Oh, she always was, that was the reporter in her. She always had a little, no matter where we went or what we did, she had a little notebook.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
she did. She does a lot of them.
and I think one of the highlights of her reporting career was visiting Walker's Point, so she got to meet
The
both
Bushes. yeah.
George Herbert Walker Bush and Barbara.
Yeah.
And that was such a wonderful opportunity. And she said Barbara had 2 different color sneakers on. One was blue and one was red or something. And then reading a book one of Barbara's biographies later, I realized that that was something she did on purpose.
Yeah.
Oh.
And I didn't know that at the time, but, I mean, that was quite an opportunity to be able to do that.
I saw she interviewed the boxer Joe Frazier.
I just
Two.
came across that picture here when I moved, just this summer. I
Yeah.
came across a little spit out Polaroid where she's got a skirt on and she's shaking his hand. I gave the photograph to Caleb, but it was like, yeah,
You
she.
mean her hand was enfolded in his?
Oh yeah, it was
Yeah.
big heads, that's for
Yeah.
sure. That's for sure. But
She had an amazing life.
oh, she really did have an amazing life, and it wasn't just as a reporter either. I mean, she was involved in all sorts of civic activities and organizations in the community. Of course, she was on the board of selectmen. We're sitting at that table
yes,
right now.
yeah.
Yeah.
The board of selectmen for like 4 years, I think.
And would still have been if she could have done
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Because she hated
Yeah.
to give that
And
up.
she was on the board for Channel 11. I think she was a vice
Mhm.
chairman and a secretary for that. And she was in BPW, I think,
She was.
for a while. And she was involved in the Friends of the Library and you name it. I mean, she was really
For the
involved
women's
in
club, she was in the women's
club and just involved in an awful lot of things.
She was in school as well. She just had a list. That's why I did ask her a few years ago to write it all down. And that was the
Good
biggest
thing.
panic took me almost 2 days to write the obituary because I was so afraid I was going to miss something. Cause
Did you ever find anything that she had written?
Yes, you told me where
Well,
stuff
I
was,
wondered
and that's
if
where
you
I found
found
the
it,
list,
yeah.
so I wrote it and.
Because she would say, I've got to get this obituary finished. She said that probably for all the years I knew her. I don't know how many times she said it.
Oh,
And
amazing.
she said, I don't want Tricia to have to do this all by herself.
She was also the editor of Women's Quarterly.
She's
Women's
still-
Quarterly, there you go.
Yeah, she was still working for the Morning
Yeah.
Sentinel.
Yeah.
Until she
Yes,
passed,
yeah.
But just an
Very
amazing life.
stressed, but
And then you have Katie, and
Oh.
Katie was like a whirling dervish her whole life. I
Didn't
mean,
her mind
everything.
ever stop?
it
Ever read
just,
Battery?
there was stuff coming all the time from her. Very creative, very energetic. A lot of last-minute stuff thrown at you,
Yeah.
and she was amazing at talking people into things. Now,
Oh my God. yes.
originally,
choice.
she asked me to be on the Keeping Pace
Yeah.
show, and I said, well, you know, Katie, I'm really busy. I can come in and occasionally substitute. And next thing I know, I'm a permanent member of that show. And then next thing you know, okay, she wasn't done yet. Next thing you know, now you know, okay? And I believe it was John Doucette, was former town manager, hosted the show for a while, and then he left.
Yeah.
And they needed somebody new. And said, Chris, you'd be perfect for it, perfect. And I said, Katie, I don't know how to interview people. I've never done this stuff before. Doesn't matter. You'd be perfect. You're going to do it, right? And I said, well, you know, if you want, maybe I'll just substitute, but find somebody else permanent. You know how long that lasted. And before I knew it, I was doing that show. And actually I'm very grateful for her because I really enjoyed
I know,
doing the show.
I was in Kiwanis, I was actually the first woman invited to be in the Kiwanis in Farmington. And so after we moved down here, she said, oh, well, good, you can be in Kiwanis down here. And I said, well, I'll see. Because Peter hadn't been dead very long at that point. So I went to the first meeting, and she said, oh, by the way, you're secretary. Oh, I thought, my
Of
God,
course.
Katie, I don't even know anybody here.
But that was Katie.
Yeah.
Everything, you've heard the term assumed consent.
Yeah.
Well, it was assumed consent. And even if you said no,
Oh, it didn't make any
it didn't
difference.
matter. You were doing it.
Yeah.
Because she had it in her head that you were going to do that,
Oh, yeah.
right? So, Lynn, you can probably add to that. I mean, she was like, she just expected things and usually got her way.
She usually did. Yep. She was determined. She was a very determined woman.
Oh, yeah.
There was
That's a good word,
no-
honey.
No ifs, ands, or buts about that.
It wasn't
If
much
she had
political
something
vision, it
s-
was focused.
If she had something, if she was on a mission,
Yeah.
she wasn't, she would try to finish that mission.
Oh, yeah.
there's a couple missions that she didn't accomplish, but
Yeah.
that's okay.
But not for lack of
But
trying.
not for lack of trying, that's true.
No.
Gary, the gentleman you mentioned with the accordion,
Oh, yes.
now, he would just volunteer and he just would, I'm not sure how he ended up way up here to play for the nursing homes up here, but he did. And it was my mother that
think it
told
could
him
have been your
that
mother's
he
cooking.
needed to quit his job and make this a living. So when you met him after going through the world, that's because my mother told him that
Yeah.
that's what he needed to
Yeah.
do. And I still keep in touch with Gary.
Yeah.
And he always says that I owe my life to your mother because
That's something.
He
That's something.
still plays the accordion. He
Of
still
course.
goes to the nursing homes.
Yeah.
He's had several theme songs for movies
Yeah.
that I couldn't. I think one of them was the Bad News Bears.
Yeah.
I think
Huh.
it was number 2 or something like that.
Really?
I can't remember, but it was one of those movies that he
And the
it was
music.
his music that
Yeah.
was used in the background.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he always tells me that, I owe your mother because of my career.
Wow.
Yeah, that is
It's
something.
too bad you didn't get her and her parody in front of 2 typewriters, though,
Oh.
because my mother was the same. I don't know how she could push those buttons so fast and
Yeah.
just, and like you said, you
Just
have to
a blur.
pound on those things.
Yeah.
And so it's too bad you never knew that she could do
I
that too,
didn't know,
because it
no,
would have been a
no.
good little contest
It
between
would've
the
been.
two.
I don't think her would have done it, but
And
maybe. Who
And
knows?
she was still doing newspaper work late in life. If the walls could talk, was that the?
If walls could
Oh,
talk.
that's right.
That's
Yeah,
right.
she
Yes.
did those up till about
That was in one of those local newspapers.
Yeah.
that-
Up to
Um,
just a few years back, right?
Yeah.
yeah. And keeping pace, or if I would take her from the nursing home when I would bring her over to the studio
Yeah,
before COVID.
now you know, yeah.
Now you know, before
Yeah.
COVID, and then when COVID took place, she couldn't leave after that, and everything changed actually after that. But,
Oh, she was still trying to come over to the show
yeah.
right
Oh,
up
yeah.
until about a year or so ago, right? Yeah.
And she even tried to get into an apartment.
Yeah.
Right. She was determined. She'd look in the newspaper and she'd be calling for an apartment. And next thing you know, they'd be calling me going, well, I got a phone call from your mother and she's in a nursing home. And I'm like, well, she wants one, but she was determined. She never even gave up on
No, and
her last.
Oh, no. When I was
Right,
talking to
She
her.
was never there full time. She was going to.
Exactly. She's always
Yeah,
going
she was there
home
temporarily.
or someplace else.
Yeah, she just always, she was always on the go, and there was Louie, always
Oh, yeah.
driving her here, driving
That's
her
right,
there,
yeah,
and,
And
Yeah.
her cooking was amazing. Some
Yeah.
of the things she cooked.
Her Christmas
Oh,
baklava
yeah.
and the crackers.
Oh,
she
was
loved
that
her
to die
pie, she
for,
loved
what?
to make her
Yeah.
pie.
That's good.
That thing she
Yeah,
made.
she-
I don't know what it
I
was.
called it a baklava. It wasn't, I know, but it was like it. Very,
They
very
might put it
similar.
terms, but come Christmas time, she'd be always at my door with carrying the plates, They said,
Yeah.
And she would invite many people over to her house to
Oh,
She'd
cook.
invite a complete stranger to her house.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if she met you in the grocery store and you started talking and you didn't have a place for dinner, you were invited to her
You were
house.
invited. That
And
was,
Louis was always by her side. He
Always.
drove her everywhere.
He did.
They were always together.
I don't know how they ever negotiated that path down to the camp.
I know.
You know,
Especially in the
planning
winter.
booths or- Yes.
I don't know how Louis did it. I
Nor
mean,
do I.
I was 60 years old trying to shovel that place out, and he was 90 doing it.
Yeah.
but he was up until the very end with the cancer. I mean, he was a very vigorous man.
Oh.
He was still maintaining that place. I think he was even chopping wood and
Yeah.
doing all that stuff. And he was going out on hunting trips and
Fishing trips.
fishing
and-
trips
Sitting
and
On the
Really?
Madison
He
Planning
was,
Board.
he was an extreme
planning. That's right.
fisher,
John
he
just said
really
Madison
was.
Planning
He-
Board. Yeah, he was. They were a team.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, he was very involved. They were just gave and gave to the community.
Yep.
no question.
She also helped Richard Washburn
Robert.
start the.
Robert Washburn.
Rob Washburn,
Yeah.
the Abner Coburn Day
Yes.
that we
Yes.
now have in March, and she was real instrumental in that.
They just had that, as a matter of fact,
Yeah.
like
Yes, that's
yesterday, I think.
Yeah, I think it was, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember when Lou worked for Patriot Realty?
Yes.
And, of course, Harvey was part of it then, and I'll never forget, we'd have the Christmas parties. And Lou would be just sitting over there, and I'd say, Lou, you gonna talk? He's, no, he's just kind of sitting over there, and Katie would have all the conversation. It was hilarious. We'd always say, Lou would sit over there so quiet.
Well,
Yeah, she never lacked for something to
No.
say.
Well, part of the
Just very
problem is Lou couldn't hear, right?
Yes,
You know, he had,
yes.
which is probably okay.
That's right.
I won't elaborate anymore, but.
She was a sweet lady.
That was taking his.
Yeah, he just took it out and put it down, and he didn't want to hear it.
Just shake his head and smile.
Yeah.
That's what I do.
Yeah.
But they actually dedicated a few years ago, I think it's 2019, the Madison Town Report
Yes.
to Katie and Lou.
Yeah, to both of them.
That was like a legislative proclamation or something
Yeah.
too. Voted for that. I remember going to a function the Somerset County Commissioners had.
That was for the volunteers.
The volunteer.
Yep.
That's what that was.
Yep.
Yeah. For that.
And she got, it was in there's something from Agnes King for her volunteer, something he signed and gave her a certificate of some sort.
Yeah.
That was from Agnes King. And she just didn't stop. I mean, even when she was in the nursing home, she didn't stop. She would go and have kind of similar little she'd like do story time.
Yeah.
I guess like on a Friday or something, and she would do like a little thing for the residents on Fridays in the dining room, and she'd tell them stories. And one of the last times I had her out and about, as far as in a car and traveling around, and I mean, I'm glad it was a long trip because it was actually her I didn't know it was going to be the last time I would have her out, but
Yeah.
I mean, she just could drive down any street and tell me who lived where, or Margaret Chase
I know.
parents
Long-term
lived here,
memory was still there.
You know, and she would say, "Oh,
Yeah.
you needed to make sure you stopped at their driveway because her father did not stop." You know, I mean, so there was a little story with every place that we went by. So her long-term memory was great. It was the short-term memory that was getting her more in trouble than anything.
She did a lot of things in her life. She was also activity director at 234 Madison Avenue and Maple Crest Nursing Home. So when you're talking about doing that thing, it comes full circle, I guess. She was natural at being an activity director. So.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And so she did that.
And she was very opinionated, and she never held that
For sure.
back either. I guess we need to throw that in here because
Oh, for sure.
if she was not happy with you, she definitely would voice her opinion. No question about it.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you got the brunt of that.
I did.
An early story in her life that my mother-in-law used to love to tell. She and my sister-in-law, Jean Finley Dowdy, went to school together all through school.
She was
And
in
then
my
they
parents'
went to-
wedding too.
Mhm.
She was in my parents' wedding too.
Yes,
She was
yeah.
bridesmaid.
And they went to Colby Junior. And Nanny and Pop took them to the railroad station because that was when you could get the train in Waterville. And they were a little bit late. And like the story in the movies, the train was going and Katie was running down the track, waving down the engineer, and they stopped and they got on the train. But oh God, Nanny Villa used to love to tell that story about Katie.
Oh. There's not much that she was afraid to take on. I mean, I even saw, and I'd forgotten that she actually ran for legislature. She was
Against a Curtis. It was
Phil,
Phil,
probably,
yeah.
against Phil Curtis. She was also, as a Democrat at the time, and she was GOP chairman, county chairman for the Republicans.
She was a Republican when she first moved here, and then she changed her party to.
I heard she got mad at Bush, I think it was, Bush, the second Bush,
Yeah.
and decided to change her party affiliation.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was kind of.
Wouldn't she be out in the field there now?
I also want to mention, Chris,
yeah,
that
sure.
Darla, is it the Chamber of Commerce that does the honor once a year? I can't remember.
Oh, the
Spirit of America?
Was that they have various categories, right? You talking to Elton Whittemore?
No, yes, the Alton Whittemore,
Yeah.
because Darla was honored with that one year.
And so was Katie.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
sure.
So here's
yeah.
that symmetry again, you know.
Yeah.
It is, there's a
So
lot that you say, I mean, she's a lot like my mother.
I know,
Yeah.
Very much like.
they were both, how do I say, not domineering, is that a good word? But they were
Involved.
strong-willed,
Yeah.
very.
And your mother, as you know, could be opinionated.
No, really?
Because
I never noticed.
she had, we loved to talk politics, and we didn't always agree.
Yeah.
But we had a good time voicing our opinions, and we just had so much fun.
Oh, absolutely.
But
We never got politically involved on the show.
no,
But I remember one of the
Try
guests we
not to.
had way early in the show was we had Peter Mills and Peter someone else who used to run Chimbo. Peter.
Vigu.
Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They
My
were-
God, I came up with
They
it.
were on the show together, and a few politics came in to run that day. But they were two that was a really good show because they didn't hold anything back.
Yeah.
Peter Mills was
Oh,
a great
interesting.
guy.
Interesting. Yeah, we've tried to stay away from politics.
Politics.
We have to,
Yeah.
It's a
yeah.
good idea.
Yeah, occasionally you drift in a little bit, but we try to stay out of the controversy as much as possible. But yeah, both of them were tough-minded, but very friendly,
Very fair and very
outgoing,
honest.
very fair. They certainly had that in common. And boy, you know, when either was in the room, you knew it.
Oh yeah.
You know.
And as you said,
they
she
actually
tried-
care a lot about each other. I mean, you sometimes people that are domineering don't
Clash.
Right, but
They
they
get
get my
jealous.
mother does love Darla.
Well, they admired each other, I'm
Yeah.
sure.
And Darla, as you touched on, always prided herself in presenting both sides of an issue and to be
Yes.
very, very careful not to say anything that would make it sound like she was on one side or the other. I mean, she prided herself in that.
And I remember, of course, you wrote the obituary, so I just remember the thing where she would come to the selectmen's meetings and try to crowd up front as much as she could so she could hear everything perfectly.
Yes.
To make sure she was giving a very
Yeah.
fair, accurate story
Yeah.
each time. And I said, that sounds like Darla. Yeah.
I'd sit out there and be like, here she goes. you could see it coming. I couldn't hear. Yeah,
She was also on SEDC for a while.
Yeah.
Maitland was. That's when I met Maitland.
Yeah.
When you say he was a great man.
Great. Yeah.
Very
I've got
classy.
nothing but good to
Yeah.
say about Maitland. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm looking at that picture of those folks now, and they were all wonderful, classy individuals.
Oh, they were.
Who,
They were.
But you combine the five of them together, and there was pretty good and
Oh,
sometimes feisty interactions.
Yeah.
I always remember Maitland telling me we were gonna go. We were traveling to Fairfield History House to do the show there.
I went to
And-
that.
Did you? We picked
Yeah.
up Maitland up at his house.
Yes, I did do.
Yeah.
I did go
I think,
to that.
in fact, I think we met at his house and we went down in
Yeah,
the van,
I think
his
so
van.
too. Yeah.
But the view from his house.
Oh, it's beautiful.
But he said, in the winter, when the wind blows, it stops at my house. It was frigid in their
Yeah.
house. It faced north.
Yeah.
Yeah, to see Sugarloaf and everything.
I know. I'm sure.
But when the wind blew, you
I'm
couldn't
sure
make the house
Sylvia
any
hated
better.
to leave there.
Yeah, I think she did.
Hmm?
Yeah, I think she did. She
What?
loved being on
As-
Bigelow Hill.
Oh,
Loved
yeah.
being up there.
Yeah.
I know that. It's
Yeah.
in that area so too. But the other thing I wanted to mention about both Darla and Katie is they were very tough-minded women who also dealt with a lot of tragedy in their lives.
Yeah.
And I don't think I have to tick off all the things that happened both to your mom and your mom in their lives, but
Yeah.
they were survivors.
They were.
And
God love her.
they carried on despite all the tragedy that was involved there. And Darla at the end, you know, between dealing with the COPD and it was emphysema.
Emphysema, COPD, and asthma.
Asthma, and it combined, they were all combined to make it very difficult for her at the end.
And she would
and
go
she handled it.
to her, Mackenzie is the oldest granddaughter, right?
Yes, yes.
And Darla, as difficult as it was for her, would go to was it soccer that she
She went to
played?
soccer, yeah, she
And
walked
she
down.
would go with her
Yeah.
oxygen, and she would go to that soccer game and watch her and be just undone totally once she got home, but she would
She made it.
push herself to do that, to go see that
Well,
little
the same,
girl play.
when she was on the show, and before the show started, she would got her bag and
Oh, yeah.
prepared herself.
Yeah.
and got
Oh, it was involved, yeah.
Yeah, and always
It was
took a
involved.
sort of nebulizer and all that sort of stuff.
But she was still going out and doing things till the day she died.
When
Yeah.
I would visit, she would say, "Oh, I'm so tired. I just don't know why I'm so tired." And then you'd look at her calendar. And every time I looked out the window, she was going by. I'm like, "Mom, you don't stay home." It's like, "Well, I can't stay in that place forever." It's like,
And then COVID hit.
And
we
then
didn't go
COVID
anywhere,
hit.
but-
And speaking of COVID, I mean, your mom actually got COVID in the nursing home, right? And survived that. But you know, your family has had a fair amount of tragedy too, and Katie kept right on going and dealing with things.
Yeah, I think that she got Lyme disease back in the
That's right.
1980s, and so she dealt with pain on a daily basis. And when it first hit, I can remember visiting her in the hospital down in Portland, and whatever they were treating her with, she literally looked like she just blew right up. I mean, I don't know how, it looked like
Yeah.
if I shook a pin, the air would have just, it was incredible.
Yeah.
And her lung collapsed.
Oh.
So for like over a year, she would have to use one of those blow things to blow up her lung every morning. I mean, but it did not stop her.
No.
Lyme
No.
disease did not stop her,
No.
and that is why she donated her body to science, is in hopes that they're going to learn something more about the Lyme disease because they never could cure her.
Yeah.
There was nothing there, and even it's too late now, once they started finding medication that they can give you and stuff, but it was too late for her.
Yeah.
So
Because
she's
it was a
hoping-
lengthy period of time before they diagnosed it. They didn't know for a long
No,
time,
they
right?
didn't. It was almost 9 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, it was, like I said, she had so much fluid built into her. I mean, when I walked in there, I didn't even recognize her.
Yeah.
And like I said, I felt like if I had taken a pin, she would have just
Yeah.
popped
Oh,
and
no,
just,
yeah.
it was just incredible. And
Swim for your life, right?
yeah, it was just, but like I said, she fought it.
But it was just a temporary setback to Katie. She just kept going from
She
there.
kept going, and
She lost her singing voice and
Yeah.
and obviously lower energy levels at
I
times.
know she told me that she didn't taste things the same either.
Right, she
The
said the
sense of taste
tasting,
is-
yeah, the sense of taste. But I really think the losing her singing voice
Oh.
was probably more tragic to her
I
than
can't,
Oh,
living
yeah.
I can't
with
even
the
imagine.
joint pain and everything on a daily basis. I know that losing her voice was
tough.
Was tough for her.
But her voice was an outlet.
Because she used
Yeah.
she used to perform on the Strand
Strand Theater,
Theater.
right? Yeah.
as a little girl, 5 years old, tap dancing and
Sure,
singing.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
it was a voice that she'd had for
Forever.
a long time.
Born with it. Yeah. Yeah. Wonderful.
And she loved being out on Lake Westeronset too. I mean, that was her parents built the camp portion of what became her house, the add-on on that.
That was Henry, right?
That was
Yeah,
Henry
her
and
father
Roxy.
was Henry
Henry's
and
hardware.
Roxy Valier,
That's
Henry's
right,
Hardware.
Yes.
Yep.
And he built
He
The
built
camp.
the camp, which was the front part of her
the house. Yeah. Yeah.
And then when we we built a camp, when we lived in New Jersey, they built the camp next door, which, the camp was the front part in Andrew Ketterer's house.
Right.
That was our camp. And then they moved that forward and built the house behind it when we moved here. And then they moved away to New York for a while, and then they came back and they redid my grandfather's camp for their house.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. When you were growing up, of course, you moved quite a bit there with your father's employment.
Yeah.
I remember at least 4 states involved before you finally came back to Maine.
I was Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, New Jersey, and Maine.
And Maine.
In
okay.
Maine. And my oldest brother was five states.
So you
Oh, Tennessee was the other one.
Tennessee
Tennessee
was-
was the other one.
never
Tennessee
did
was-
live in New York then?
I'm sorry?
You never lived in New York?
I did, they
No,
did.
yeah, I
No.
thought so.
I was living in New Hampshire at the time. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was already grown up and out of the
Oh,
house
okay.
at that point,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
And she even revamped Little Falls, New York.
And
So
she had to have her imprint on every place she
Every
was.
place she went.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's no question about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, amazing.
But so, yeah, if you ever wanted to know anything, like, for instance, downtown Skowhegan, some of the stores had changed names, you know, things like that.
Yeah.
But she knew all the original names of every store downtown.
Yes.
Original owners and the names and their history.
Well, I think you said this somewhere, Lynn, that we kind of lost a historian or lost quite a bit of institutional knowledge.
Well, we did with
with
all
her
these people.
and for
I was
Darla.
saying
Yeah.
Herb was an amazing.
And for those folks.
And Maitland.
Oh, yeah.
And Betty. Yeah, my goodness, yeah. Yeah.
You know, we've also lost some other people since the show was
Oh,
last
I
on the
know.
other on the air. And for example, Shirley Whittemore,
Yeah.
Bob Cross.
Cross Jr., and most recently and tragically Warren Shea.
Yes,
You know, these are all
that was,
pillars of the community, I would say.
Absolutely.
And for
Absolutely.
Darla and Katie.
yeah.
And so it's been kind of a I'll get the words out, tough stretch for the community losing these people.
Yeah,
Well, of course, all of those people mentioned growing older too.
Well, true.
You know.
and Warren was young, I mean, nobody would have
Not
expected
young.
that at all.
No.
No, and of course Warren was was in great condition. He was
Tennis,
exercising
Walking,
constantly.
Yeah.
But just think how happy he died.
He was in the
was-
Galapagos
I mean,
Islands.
he
What
was
was
in
he
the
doing?
Galapagos
He was
Islands
and then he
had
was
just been
he
scuba
was
diving
either
and
scuba
all
diving
Scuba
or
diving, that's right, yeah.
yeah, he was
Yeah.
he died doing what he liked to do.
And with your mom too, I mean, Darla and I talked, this is gonna sound morbid, but it wasn't. We talked a lot about death and just different feelings about it, and both of us had said, wouldn't it be wonderful if we're lucky enough to just drop dead?
Well,
And by God, she got
She
it.
did.
She passed away, I mean, God willing, would
And she
She never
felt
moved.
good that day. She went.
Well, she
I
was
don't know
going
if
to
you knew
Walmart
she was
because
going to buy you a
to-
butter. She was going to buy you a butter dish for Christmas. That was her last Christmas present.
I didn't at a butter dish, but I
And
did.
and she went to Walmart to get you a butter dish.
She started saying with COVID because she was inside so much.
Right.
Oh, yeah,
And
she
so
had to
then, as it started to, I said, you need to go to some places, because by then I did a grocery shop for a year, and then she did online grocery shopping.
Yeah.
And she refused, like I'd say, go drive up then and get your groceries if you want to, but it was hard for her to lug, and I'd be like, just call me and I'll scoot up. No. Then she'd call me, tell me how tired she was, and I'd give her Mario Hector,
I
I could
know.
lug them up over the stairs, but she did it all on her own most of the time.
Well, she said I like
And
to
so
go.
she said, I'd like to start doing something, and I said, well, you're gonna have to go somewhere. So her big thing was Walmart, so she was proud. A couple of weeks before that, she ventured to Walmart and got printer cartridges, and did all these things, and she felt so good. And
She
then
did.
the young lady that I work with down the hall, she happened to say that that evening that my mother went to Walmart, I was at a selectmen's meeting, and normally she texts me to say, headed to Walmart, so that I'd know she was out and about. And
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah,
And,
and that
she was
at
worried
that time
about
of night, I
Mackenzie
was
getting her a
surprised.
Christmas present because the little dress she picked out, little dress-up dress she didn't like. and that wasn't gonna be good enough.
Oh,
And she wanted to
okay.
take that back. And so when I realized that Dave said that she was headed from that direction, the evening when I went to the hospital, I looked at her wallet, and by God, if there wasn't a Walmart slipped in there, I looked at Harvey and I'm like, she went to Walmart.
So
And I
maybe it
looked.
wasn't the butter dish.
No,
She
it
had
was a
told me-
Christmas gift,
She
this
had told me
beautiful
that
little
was,
sweater and pants for Mackenzie,
God
and some of her
bless her.
Christmas cookies that she had gotten, and some of the things, but she was so proud that she was getting out and
Yeah.
about by herself.
yeah.
And so I was really happy for her. It was a happy, you know, she was finally, and everybody was like, why was she on that road? And she didn't like the small road ever since they put the sidewalk on it. She would she would complain there's not enough room and I can't see, and so she would go Cowett Street.
Yeah.
Oh, so that's
Yeah.
why, yeah.
She used to go across Gem Street out in
Yeah.
that road. It was on Gem Street that
She didn't like Gem Street, and what she couldn't see, and the sidewalk made it
after
too
they
small, and she
rebuilt
complained
it,
about
yeah.
that, because she was on the board when they
Yeah.
talked about
Well,
the
that was
sidewalk.
supposed to be a traffic calming
Yeah.
thing.
She didn't
but
want
it-
that sidewalk.
I know it's pretty darn narrow, because when
Yeah.
I'm driving my truck down that
So
street,
I'm
somebody's
sorry, I
coming the
stand
other
to be
way.
corrected. She had told me she had one
Yeah.
last thing to get, and it was a butter dish for
I
you.
think there
but-
was some towels in there that might have been meant for
Yeah.
that, but,
Oh,
Well, you know, as usual, we plowed through the hour very, very quickly, and
what time is
you
it?
know, it's
Oh,
about 4 or 5
okay,
minutes
okay.
before the show ends, and but there is so much to remember about these two women because they
Yeah.
have just been so involved in the community and in their work, and certainly in our shows.
Yes.
Katie being the creator of our shows, and Darla really running the show, being on the board of Channel 11, and
Did she
very
take?
involved.
She took over as host of Keeping Pace after Herb died, right?
Was that immediately after?
I
Yes.
think so.
Okay.
I think so. I think it was.
She was, yeah, I guess it was after Herb died.
Yes, it must. It had to have been because I don't remember anyone else sitting there other than Herb and Darla.
Yep.
I didn't think it was that long ago, but years go
I
by.
do. Yeah. And yeah.
No, it's-
Because I remember we discussed it, and she said, well, you should do it, you've been, I said, I don't want to be host.
Nor did I.
well, she was a very good host.
She
Yeah,
was a
she was
very good
one-
She
host.
was
so-
perfect for that role.
Yeah.
she didn't might not have wanted to be, but like your mom,
She's
don't try to take
Don't-
the turf either.
yeah.
And the slower you get.
I know, because every once in a while, I'd think of something we'd need to say, and I'd mention it when she was on, and I could almost see her not liking it, but.
Well, Betty at the funeral said it's all in the presentation, and I actually snickered in the front of the funeral because I'm like, it was the plate.
Oh,
and It
yeah.
was the food, and it was how the food looked on the plate.
Yeah.
Too
'Cause she
many
said-
people glob too much food on the plate. It's all in the presentation.
She
Tricia.
said your grandmother always presented
She
a
did.
pretty plate, and she always wanted her food to look pretty,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
so.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, we've easily covered an hour talking about these two women. We probably could cover another 2 hours talking about them as well. It's really amazing, but what they have done for the community and in their work life, and surely for Channel 11, has just been amazing, and the show really is to remember and honor them today for everything that they have done. And we really would like to thank both Tricia and Lynn for being on the show and giving us the insider views of their parents, and of
And
course,
holding it all together.
and welcoming back Donna and Alan from Keeping Pace. And we did talk about maybe bringing Keeping Pace back for a few shows a year. We don't want to work them too hard, but we'd like to be able to do that.
And we can do
for
it
you
at
folks
your
as well.
convenience.
But you know, the show would start out with Kate in the background. Welcome to
Right.
such and such a show of Keeping Pace, you know. And all through the show, she would never be on camera, but she'd
chime in.
She would be chiming
Hold
Hold up
something
a
on
note.
the
She'd
side.
hold up a note, and she'd do this, and all sorts of stuff, and I'd have to try to figure out, what are you doing? What are you talking about? And then I just stopped the show. Well, Katie wants to say something, so we put her on.
But it's
Anyway,
interesting, she never did want to be on the show.
No,
well, she was on the show one
Yeah.
way or
Right.
another,
Yeah.
so she was.
her presence was felt in every show.
Every show. Well, once again, thank you, folks. It's good to be back on the air again.
Yeah.
Hopefully no more COVID pauses and we can go back and resume our normal lives. So, and thank you very much. And now you know.